Thank you for tuning in to the Peoplz and Dragons. If you enjoy the content we provide, then subscribe, like, and maybe join in on the action at www.pndrpg.com. Haven City. An ugly city. Episode 14. Big Tank. Act 5. We see a luxury vehicle speeding through the street, trying to stay clear of hordes of raving civilians, occasionally having to run over a few crazies or two. Inside of the vehicle, we see one of Haven's most notorious thieves and shot callers, Ransom Ramsey, who never leaves the underground, but was forced to when the world began ending. His troop are transporting him to another safe zone when they see a woman standing in the middle of the street. Mistaking her for a crazy, the driver presses on the gas when suddenly all four of their tires pop and explode with bursts of green energy, causing them to swerve and crash into a light pole. The old Myra Dyra, her crimson hair complementing the building ablaze behind her. All of the thieves, including Ransom Ramsey, get out of the vehicle and see, standing before them in the middle of the street, the old Myra Dyra, her crimson hair complementing the building ablaze behind her. Beside her lay a paralyzed elite Survey Day cult member bound in ropes. Myra has been using the chaos in the city as an opportunity to single out and hunt a long list of personal enemies of her past as a petty thief, using the addresses and data she obtained from Atlas databases. Myra looks down at her Atlas wrist device and crosses off Ransom Ramsey. She then looks at both of her hands, now glowing with green Takena power. An academic skill she siphoned from her victim through her hate feed ability and begins walking toward them. The knowledge of hand gestures and concentration techniques used to tap into a hateful frequency has become apparent to her, but she knows not what it means, but recalls the spells that the cultist knew best as the Takena courses through her fingertips. Ramsey's personal henchman tells the old lady not to take another step or she'll be shot. But Myra knows the eccentric Ramsey and his crew don't travel with guns, and so she keeps walking. Ramsey squints and recognizes her face and calls her by her name to be sure, when suddenly Myra fires a bolt of Takena from out of her hand that blasts his henchman in the chest, obliterating him. The other henchmen activate their pulse laser knives and charge at her, but soon run directly into her rage mist and instantly lose sight of her. The henchmen begin choking and coughing, and within seconds, their eyes turn bloodshot red and they begin ripping each other apart ferociously as a result. These were the lethal side effects of rage mist, rendering Myra invisible to those driven mad by it, as well as gaining the skills that they know. Ransom Ramsey runs over to a civilian and holds them at knife point, threatening to kill them if she continues to press him. Myra smiles and continues walking forward. Ramsey keeps his promise and slits their throat and begins running when Myra blasts a massive wave at Takena, the largest any cult member has ever produced, that engulfs Ransom Ramsey, blowing him off of his feet as he melts in midair, leaving a steaming pile of green goop plopping to the ground. Myra looks at her hands, impressed at the spell power, and begins to feel the urge for more Takena knowledge as we see black lettering spread up the back of her neck that she doesn't notice. We then see Myra storing away her paralyzed cult member in a hidden area in the alleyway for later feeding, and goes on to cause more chaos in the city with her rage mist while fulfilling her vendetta. Not too long after, we see a mysterious woman in the distance watching Myra stash the cult member away. We cut to the civilian whose throat was slit, laying in the street, gasping for air and bleeding out, staring up into the night sky filled with ships and stars. The same mysterious woman watching Myra arrives, standing over the civilian, and kneels down. Sympathy written all over her face for the victim. With a soft, majestic voice, she tells the civilian that they feel no pain. Instantly and surprisingly, the civilian's pain begins to fade away, just like she said. The mysterious woman is surrounded by an aura that nullifies the effects of the chaos and rage mist around her, and instead promotes life, mending, and positive energy that slowly begins to heal and mend the civilian's slit throat, who looks to be in a peaceful and euphoric state, entranced by the woman's mantra echoing through her mind. Man does not control power. Power controls man. Return to us the arms of God. Man does not control power. Power controls man. Return to us the arms of God. Man does not control power. Power controls man. Return to us. We zoom outward over the entire city, and we hear this chant resonating in the hearts and minds of every person this woman had crossed paths with. In the hearts and minds of every person this woman had crossed paths with and saved. A blessed communion of souls, a network of empathically linked minds, all leading to this woman and the true reason for the frequency of chaos not fully coming into fruition. An underlying issue that has muddied the instigator's experiments for some time now, and he doesn't even know that this is why. And so, the instigator created Advocate to counter this, but to no avail. The woman looks to where she last saw Myra, who she considers a massive threat to her idea of harmony, and continues to follow her while remaining in the shadows and healing everyone she strikes down. Hours later, we see Myra standing on a rooftop looking down at the city streets, waiting for her next target to evacuate their home as it is broken into by rage-misted crazies. She watches as the thief who betrayed her 40 years ago is ambushed by these mad men. He begins firing his rifle, but gets overwhelmed and brutally beaten and killed in front of his own home. Myra begins to cross off another name on her Atlas watch, when strangely, the screen goes dead. Myra taps it, and it comes back on. She then hears something and turns around and sees nothing but an orb slowly circling her silently. Myra takes no chances and immediately unleashes a gout of rage mist, completely gassing the entire roof. The orb gets closer. Myra steps back away from it. She then sees a nimble and obscured figure run behind the satellite on top of the roof. Myra's hands glow with Takena as she tries to maintain line of sight with her target while keeping distance, when suddenly an android assassin materializes in front of her, plunging its energy katana straight through her stomach, then grabs her face and pushes her off of the blade slowly, as if trying to preserve her innards. She falls toward the ground as 3 orbs appear and emit tractor beams at the stunned Myra, slowing her fall. The orb from earlier comes zipping over and zaps her, paralyzing her in place. All of the orbs then fly into the shoulder of the android called the Wanderer, an advanced android created by Anarchy 12 using new advancements from alien knowledge and collected G-type data. With exceptional swordsmanship, speed, and warp technology, the Wanderer is the most cunning of his creations to date and is often used to hunt and capture G-types to take back to Sector 12. The mysterious woman, not knowing an aircraft was even called, runs over to Myra's aid when suddenly from behind, her hair is pulled into a leg sweep that sends her crashing to the ground and apprehended by the Wanderer that materializes again, with its sword pointed toward her face as it begins scanning her gamma mutations. Back in the instigator's lab, One of his many small monitors begin to alert and notify him of the appearance of the mysterious woman. The instigator pulls up the screen, and he and Zamina's faces look surprised at the sight of Saoirse, the instigator's long-lost experiment, the Daughter Project. His first attempt to improve the G-Type and G-Type 1, resulting in the unfinished G-Type 2 that is Saoirse. Zamina turns to the instigator and asks him if she should set the tracking beam. The instigator thinks long and hard and glances at the G-Type 2 monitor with Amelia, Rose, and Serenity and says, "No." The instigator looks into Zamina's eyes and tells her that he's improving on the design of the G2 and that Saoirse is old and can be erased with the rest. Zamina shouts, "No! That's your daughter!" The instigator, filled with frustration at Zamina's empathy, while pointing his frail arms at the G2 screen displaying the sisters, he shouts, "Those are my daughters now!" He then patches into Anarchy 12 and tells him to call off his Wanderer and to spare the G-Type. The instigator then shambles up to Zamina, his bony body looking like it can barely carry his Magitech armor. He tells Zamina to her face that he wishes she were more cold like Death Dude and to stop loving her experiments, referring to R-Type. The Wanderer receives the command from Anarchy 12 and lets go of Saoirse. We then see Anarchy 12. His face expresses curiosity as he is wondering why the instigator would spare an ordinary G-Type. Anarchy 12 sends the Gorgon, a stealth bot, to keep a watchful eye on Saoirse. Anarchy's Gorgon scans the field and relays information back to Anarchy instantly. We see one of these technological marvels scaling a building hundreds of yards away, setting its sights on Saoirse, and begins to watch. The Wanderer turns away, warps out of sight as an android ship comes and collects Myra. Saoirse stands back up to her feet and watches the ship fly away. After creating an empathic link with the cult member's mind from earlier, Saoirse felt a familiar darkness and believes without a shadow of a doubt that this is all the Survey cult's doing. With a strange instinct and fueled by deja vu, Saoirse looks into the sky, peering directly into the instigator's surveillance. With a cold, callous, and evil heart, the instigator dismisses Saoirse's feed. We see Ivan Bakara floating in the abyssal realm. All around him are armies of various abyssal entities and beings lost and damned to endlessly lurk in the darkness. The Abyss is a dimension parallel to the material realm of Gamma Haven. It is a place of vast oppressive darkness and despair, and maybe even more than what it seems. Ivan's footmen in the material world informed him of the apocalypse, the fabled Emerald Prophecy, and the armies of the cultists attacking everyone. And so Ivan just knew his new neighbors would be visiting any time now by way of this odd device anchoring the material realm into the abyss like a beanstalk siphoning life energy and souls. Ivan doesn't understand why, but he feels a deep familiarity with the Takena flowing through the anchor, and he notices that even he has an undying hunger for it. A strange obsession with it creeps unto him like the recalling of a fatal addiction. Ivan's eyes fixate on the Survey breach, zoned out when suddenly his concentration is disrupted by a deep, guttural monster of a voice and a tugging on his arm.
"You must, Ivan. You must."
Ivan turns and sees a stunningly attractive, short and toned youthful woman with long blonde straight flowing hair. Her deep, majestic blue eyes piercing through the darkness. Wearing a white sleeveless shirt, Comfortably tight denim blue jeans held in place with a brown leather belt and clean white tennis shoes. Body adorned head to toe with jewelry made of various metals and set with fine stones of all colors and cuts. Selena Rind, the eldest and most ancient entity inhabiting the abyssal realm, perhaps long before Ivan entered it, continues pleading with him through soul speak, communication through a spiritual medium that requires nothing of sound, emotion, or speech.
I've watched you come and go as you please. It's been too long since you afforded me the same pleasure.
Ivan yanks his arm away and raises his fist, but thinks twice before striking the ageless and greatest abyssal entity in his jungle. Despite being bound inside of a beautiful vessel as a gift, Selena is a powerful enchantress who has dominion over her own abyssal entities, and the two have learned to coexist like a lion and a bear would. Ivan lowers his fist and smiles. He tells her he'd hate for her to ruin her pretty vessel so soon. His sarcasm doesn't land on Selena, and she roars,
So soon? It's been centuries!
Ivan tells her he's busy and begins ignoring her when Selena fade steps right in front of Ivan's face, a bold move no creature would ever make. She yokes up the lapels on his long coat.
I will devour your soul!
Ivan laughs because he knows it's true if she had the opportunity. Ivan grabs her arm and pulls her off. He tells her he'll think about it. They both sense fresh life approaching, and they switch their focus to the Survey Day breach. Descending slowly from the green hole in the sky, we see the Survey Day finder, K. McVeigh, adorned in his majestic robes, surrounding him with the darkest and rawest of Tekena energies, as souls that would usually wander the realm are drawn in and sucked into his robe, in tandem making him resistant to the life force draining environment. K. McVeigh surveys the area below him from Ivan, Selena, and every horde of abysmal life waiting to eat him, but shows no sign of fear, despite unexpectedly arriving alone.
You got some balls invading my land alone, Baldy.
Ivan shouts. Kay extends his exposed tattooed arm and summons his pioneer's whip. He then swings it upward into the breach and looks to have latched on to something. He then effortlessly pulls down 30 to 50 dead gang members from it as they rain from the hole, plummeting into the abyss, in turn feeding Ivan's creatures. Ivan identifies them as members of his criminal network he sent to Sector 12 to investigate cult activity.
You got some balls feeding my own minions to my own minions, Baldy.
Kay is not humored by Ivan nor the situation and is here for one thing: the realm. As a pioneer, Kay understands the power in having a monopoly of realms and seeks to rule them all with or without the Survey Day's help. Kay speaks. I'm here to remove you and claim this realm as my own. Selena recognizes a pioneer when she sees one, and she tells Ivan he will need her assistance, and she'd be willing to offer it in exchange for free range of the material realm for her and her children once again. Ivan is smart and has in the past received counsel from Selena, as she is not one to fabricate the weight of a threat to their kind. Ivan looks at her and tells her to sit tight. Selena grows more impatient. Ivan walks toward the floating K and waves him down. He then hurls a shuriken that zips past the abyssal monsters feeding on the bodies of the dead gangsters, its sharp edges tearing a hole into the realm, sucking them all in and clearing the way for K to land. He then summons the ruins of some of Haven's buildings as a place for K to land. The abyssal realm was pure void, and Ivan often decorated it with twisted versions of structures found in the material realm. K lands with his pioneer's whip wrapped around his forearm, glowing. Ivan twirls a knife in hand, then points it at Kay. He tells him that that's some fancy magic he has there, and that he doesn't intend on being dethroned by someone not native to the Abyss, and offers a fair one-on-one. Suddenly, Kay hurls his pioneer's whip toward Ivan, but it's blocked with his knife as it wraps around and yanks it out of Ivan's grip. Kay pulls it back, only to discover a small toxic bomb attached to the knife that explodes in Kay's face, briefly exposed to it before fading into his ethereal state and distancing himself as Ivan fades in and out of view like a ghost treading the edge of existence, forcing Kay to stay on his toes. Ivan appears from over Kay and comes crashing down, flying through him and into the ruins, destroying all matter of surfaces to stand on. But with little to no gravity in the realm, this was a non-issue for Kay McVeigh. The two go toe-to-toe, floating in the void as Ivan relentlessly attacks from all angles, dual-wielding short razor-sharp blades, triggering sparks as Kay parries almost every strike, and once he cannot, he goes into ethereal form, avoiding damage altogether. Ivan fades into a spinning kick. Kay ducks it and goes to strike Ivan, but has several shuriken thrown at him, forcing him to go ethereal again. A recurring theme of being on the defensive from Ivan's onslaught of ninja prowess. Kay swings his whip all around him, forcing Ivan back, when suddenly a large abyssal creature fades from out of nowhere and chops down on Kay's arm, catching him off guard and begins mauling Kay. Ivan laughs.
Did I say one-on-one? I lied.
Kay throws it off of him and then is attacked by 4 other creatures as Ivan flies toward him with the kick, but fades away before reaching him, then reappears behind Kay with both arms wrapped around his waist and suplex dives with Kay head first through multiple floors of buildings summoned by Ivan. Kay regains control and pulls Ivan out of the abyssal realm and into Kay's turf, the ethereal realm. Kay phases through Ivan's grip and kicks him into the 21st floor window of Atlas Corp Tower. The ethereal realm is a very complex and convoluted concept only the pioneers could understand and digest. It is virtually an overlapping dimension where the Great Gamma Calamity occurred to an alternate reality, and is where beings do not fully exist but can witness time pass. Ivan pulls himself out of the rubble as Kay approaches, dragging his whip across the ground. Ivan looks around, taking in his surroundings, and tells Kay McVeigh that he feels it's a little bright in here. Kay lashes at Ivan, who rolls out of the way, but the impact from the whip destroys the entire side of the building Ivan was on, sending him flying out of the building until he fades out, then fades in on the ground by Kay's foot and grabs it and pulls him back into the abyssal realm, where we see Ivan wrestling with Kay on top of Becky Bank Branch. Ivan plunges both knives into Kay's shoulders. Kay headbutts Ivan off of him, wraps his whip around Ivan's leg, and swings him into the bank branch sign, then back onto the roof. Ivan, slightly disoriented, begins crawling with the whip around his leg when Kay causes a shockwave of force to travel through the whip, stunning Ivan and racking him with pain as he is then brought back into the ethereal realm and thrown through the Sandwich Maven Haven's counter. Ivan crawls out of the rubble and is met by a small army of elite Survey Day cultists, all with their glowing hands out. Ivan thinks to himself.
So this is where your reinforcements were. I'm a steel blocks guy myself. The coffee is to die for.
The cultists unleash waves upon waves of Takena blasts, essentially nuking Ivan's immediate area. Kay stands from a distance, surveying the field as the green smoke clears. Ivan reappears on the shoulders of a cultist, snaps their neck, somersaults off, throwing 6 shurikens with one hand and 8 mini bombs in the other, each shuriken puncturing the eyes of its targets and bombs blowing off the legs. Ivan lands behind another cultist with a knife in mouth and jabs it into the back of his neck, grabs him and begins running toward Kay McVeigh through the crowds of cultists, using his captive as cover from Takena blasts. Ivan then kicks his captive in the back, sending him stumbling toward Kay, when suddenly a giant abysmal gamma crocodile beast burst from out of the cultist and lunges at Kay with its massive jaws. Kay leaps out of the way, his reflexes a bit more on par in his own realm, and continues to evade, roll, and dodge the creature's swipes, bites, and the swinging of its two massive tails. Kay grabs a vehicle with his whip and hurls it at the beast, but the beast captures it in its mouth. Kay swiftly lassos his whip around the mouth, pulling it closed with the vehicle in its mouth, dripping with a flammable liquid, then causes his Pioneer's whip to explode, triggering the vehicle to explode in the creature's mouth, blowing its head off. Ivan grabs Kay from behind with arm around neck and grabs the knife still lodged in Kay's shoulder.
Sleep over at my place tonight. Mama's making meatloaf.
Ivan pulls McKay back into the abyssal realm and tries forcing his face onto several giant abyssal buzzsaws manifested by Ivan spinning violently. Souls of men can be seen adjacent on both sides, having their faces pushed into saws by Ivan's torturers. The torturers look at Ivan and say, "It's Ivan." Ivan looks at them and says,
Don't mind us. Keep up the good work.
Kay goes ethereal and steps away from Ivan. Kay McVeigh, breathing heavy, with sweat dripping from his head, realizes that Ivan hasn't tired at all and seems to be more revitalized than ever. He has to remove Ivan Bakara from his realm, but keeping him out of it is the hard part. It's no wonder the Survey Day couldn't track the bastard down. Kay throws his whip at Ivan, but it's evaded as Ivan lunges and plunges his dagger into Kay's pelvic region. Kay falls, stumbles backward, and grabs onto Ivan, who laughs while letting himself be pulled back into the ethereal realm. Kay, on one knee, endures his wounds and brings himself to his feet. Ivan twirls 3 shurikens on each hand while circling the injured Kay McVeigh within his own ethereal realm.
I'll usually work things out with my enemies. We usually come to some sort of deal, but not you, Baldy. I reckon I'll just be killing you. The less realm hoppers, the better, I say.
Ivan throws all 6 shurikens into Kay, filling him up as they enter deep, each a third of the way in Kay's body. Kay stumbles back, gushing blood and stunned. Ivan fades in front of him, grabbing him by the throat and begins walking him backward.
I don't know who you cultists are, but I like ya, and I want ya.
Ivan's voice becoming deeper and terrifying as they fade back into the abyssal realm. Ivan pushes Kay backward, causing Kay to step back into a deadly trap set by Ivan that shoots one long spike up through Kay's foot and leg, leaving it jutting out of his knee. Kay screams and falls to the ground. Ivan spreads his arms in preparation to receive Kay's soul as his life dwindles.
Welcome to your new home.
Ivan waits, but nothing happens. When suddenly, Kay's Pioneer's whip appears, entangling and constricting Ivan's neck, pulling him up and away from Kay. Ivan, struggling to escape the Pioneer's whip, witnesses his own realm peel away, revealing that he is actually within the ethereal realm, dangling over the Vanlith Sea Labs, surrounded by a Survey Day army once again. 2 cultists run over to Kay's aid, detaching him from the trap that has claimed the entire half of his leg. Cultists deployed specifically to assist in the capture of Ivan appear with devices designed to deter him from fading by tethering him to the ethereal realm. Kay McVeigh has outsmarted Ivan Bakara by using his Pioneer's link to create the illusion of being in the abyss, and using his robes imbued with souls from the abyss to project the energy it has regulated from the realm to make Ivan feel at home, allowing himself to be maimed by one of Ivan's traps that he had lifted from his realm swiftly. Kay tightens the whip, lifting Ivan further into the air while wringing his neck. Suddenly, materializing from out of K. McVeigh's robes, Selena Wren's arm bursts through the conduit and link between himself and the abyss that is his robes and begins to strangle K. McVeigh as she aggressively steps through and pulls herself out of his robes. Her abyssal presence too immense to be absorbed and regulated by the robes. As the beautiful enchantress exits this gateway, hundreds of thousands of winged monstrosities exit the abyss, escaping into the ethereal realm and begin ripping apart the army of Survey-Day cultists. Ivan, though slightly concerned about Selena's escape, is okay with this for now, as he is released from the whip's snare and fades toward the ground. Selena lifts Kay's entire body by his neck with one arm and begins to sniff and sleuth him like a canine hound searching for illegal drugs. The scent of his savory soul stimulates Selena as she licks her lips. Ivan brings them back into the abyssal realm, leaving behind Selena's children to wreak havoc in the ethereal. Selena's ancient and gaudy jewelry begins to glow while she slowly rips the Takena magic from the Survey-Day robes of the Finder, disenchanting it of its power, in turn exposing Kay to the life-sapping force of the deep void. Selena then tears the robes off of him and throws him to the ground at Ivan's feet. Off in the distance, we see massive abyssal beasts and various entities destroying the already crumbling Takena anchor, severing the link between the abyss and the material realm. Kay, extremely disoriented and ill, slowly crawls away from Ivan, unable to muster the willpower to escape. Kay, extremely disoriented and ill, crawls away from Ivan, unable to muster the willpower to escape the pull of the void, when suddenly he is bound inside of an abyssal cage. Ivan turns to Selena, takes the robes from her, and asks if she still wants to leave the abyss now that she will have some company. Missing the sarcasm again, Selena screams at Ivan, commanding he let her roam the material realm. Ivan snickers at her ancient sense of humor and snaps his fingers as Selena slowly begins to fade away from the abyss as she is granted her vacation. Ivan turns to the caged K. McVeigh. He causes the cage to shrink to the size of what a small dog would be crated in, cramming K inside, balled up with zero wiggle room. Ivan kneels down to make eye contact with K.
Get comfortable.
Then proceeds to kick his cage, launching him into the great void to be sealed away with no escape. We see the instigator watching intently over the last phases of his experiment. The attempt to spark the true potential in R-Type X, proving to his green-skinned clients that the ultimate G-Type is in the making, contrary to their selection, which was inspired by impatience. A device in the instigator's area begins glowing. It was Rasmussen trying to contact him. The instigator told his general not to bother him unless it was extremely urgent. The instigator places the light on standby and walks over to a platform that warps the instigator away to a Survey-Day mothership hidden just outside of the tank. That's right, not even Rasmussen nor Anarchy know the instigator's true identity and role in the grand scheme of things. The entire Survey-Day cult was but a buffer between the inhabitants of the tank on the artificial planet and the science project taking place out in space. Taking Deathtude's approach, the instigator created the Survey-Day as a way of getting closer to his work and influencing it, and would perpetrate as a cult leader to put things into motion. A cult leader was fitting for the instigator, as he was masterfully adept in magic and dark arts from his past lives, before turning to the field of mutant creation. It was the instigator who bestowed the knowledge of Takena unto his followers. It was the instigator who created Rifmusin, a unique G-type comprised of mostly Takena and incredibly loyal to him and the cult. The instigator steps through the telepad and into the Survey Day mothership. Awaiting him on screen, Rifmusin. The instigator tells him to speak. Rifmusin informs him that their Survey Day finder has gone dark and the anchor to the abyss has been severed. The instigator, for the first time, looks worried. The G1IB, otherwise known as Ivan Bakara, and the abyss he wallows in is a contaminant, a virus that won't go away and has been a reoccurring threat to his experiments held inside of the tank since the beginning. When the Uncound offered a planet that they could work on, they failed to inform them that the planet was also the location of a dimensional tear, but not just any dimension. The Abyss. A dimension that fed on life force, a major component and necessity of the instigator's work. Life force fueled the magic and technology that the instigator utilized, and so Ivan has been an issue that has gotten harder and harder to suppress and find each life cycle. The instigator knows that producing the ultimate G-type this cycle could be his last opportunity as the condition of the tank becomes more and more contaminated with every death caused during each erasure. The instigator instructs Rifmusin to send forces to guard the parameter of where R-Type is and not to allow any abyssal interference, as they cannot afford his prized subject to be contaminated by it. Just as he says that, the instigator begins picking up a large reading of abyssal contamination approaching from the east at high speeds toward R-Type X. The instigator commands Rifmusin to swiftly send forces to the coast and prevent whatever it is from reaching the R-Type. He then brings up Kai Excalibur on a screen, who we see pillaging banks and amassing bizquirks while melting everything around him. The instigator's voice resonates inside of Kai Excalibur's head and tells him that playtime is over and it's time to carry out his duty. Kai Excalibur stops what he's doing and heads toward the coast to defend the light from other threats and distractions. The dark entity, host to Kai Excalibur's mind and body, tells Kai that this is an opportunity to prove that they are the ultimate G-type. Kai Excalibur zips up into the air like a comet and darts toward the coast, leaving a trail of fiery reds and Takena greens. Thanks for watching Peoplz and Dragons, the interactive RPG game show. I encourage everyone to jump into our comment section to participate in the lore contests, as well as visit our Patreon page to learn what perks come with your support for our machine. Peace.